Hi, everyone. I am here with a smiling face and to thank you and to appreciate you all that knew about the injury of my muscle as I shared the other day on Facebook. I actually, the way it happened was so funny. I was in the kitchen. I call it funny because actually I couldn't believe that my things had changed within a minute. I walked to the kitchen to wash a plate after eating breakfast, and as I reached out to the sink, I felt a sharp pain it felt like it was in the chest, but it also felt like it was radiating into the back. I couldn't figure out what was going on or the center of the pain. And so I stopped to listen to my body, and the more I listened, the more the pain intensified. And so confused and wondering what was happening, I luckily I had gone to the kitchen with my phone. I picked up the phone, I left the plate in the sink, and I decided, let me go sit down and kind of just rest because and then maybe I'll wash the plate later. And so as I walked to go sit down, I realized that I couldn't bend to sit down because it felt like the whole upper part of my body, particularly the chest area and the back, had locked itself. And any attempt to sit down or to bend was so painful. It felt like it was enlarging everything and applying pressure on the ribs, applying pressure on every part of the body, and making it so hard for me to breathe. Even taking a deep breath became so painful, but I couldn't figure out the center of the pain because it was like all over. It was in the chest, it was in the back, and so I tried to change and sit, on the couch, and then try to sit on the table chair, try to sit different places, but none of them was working. Any attempt to move and reposition myself was so painful. And so I thought to myself, could I be having a heart attack? You imagine the worst. And I know that I'm a woman of faith, but it was just really, really a trying time of trying to figure out, could I be experiencing a heart attack. And this is something that, if you've never experienced, you just don't know what it feels like. You don't want to take any chances, and so I actually didn't want to go to the hospital. I knew that it wasn't COVID. And even though it got to a point where taking in deep breaths was quite painful. And so I started breathing mildly, but I knew that I wasn't having difficulty breathing. It was just breathing mildly because to avoid more pain. The way you feel like your everything is pressing against your ribs, or everything inside of you has enlarged and therefore your ribs are smaller to accommodate. That was the feeling at that time. So I decided, after waiting for like 30 minutes, I decided, let me try to call my husband if he's on break. Maybe he can take a few minutes and come and help me figure out what's going on. I was home by myself. And so I called him and he didn't pick up the phone because he was working. And so I decided, after waiting for another 10 minutes, I decided, you know what, maybe it's time I should just call 911. I should just call the emergency, and see if they can come and take me to the to the emergency room, because I figured I could not even drive myself in, and I had to use the emergency, the ambulance to go to the hospital. It just feels like you are so serious. I think it's I didn't want to imagine that, things were so serious, because I was just fine. I've been fine. There is no way I can be this serious to the point where I should be taken to the hospital by emergency, by the ambulance. So, anyways, I did, and within 5 minutes they were here. When they knocked at the door, because I was standing, and I knew that movement was a little difficult for me. I was walking, I dragged myself slowly to go open the door. And when I opened the door, they saw me moving. And so in fact, before I got to the door, they were trying like to, I think, break in. And I think that is part of what they do when they know that someone has a chest problem. I mean, chest pain. They imagine that is a heart attack. So, they will do whatever they can to rescue you from that, or to try to get to you as soon as they can. So I opened the door and they're like, "What is going on?" I told them, "I am in so much pain." And at that time, I was crying because the pain was just continuing to intensify. So they said, "Can you sit down so that we can assess you?" I said, "I can't sit. I cannot sit. It's like my upper body had locked itself. The way everything locks itself. You can't move, you can't rotate yourself, you can't, uh, twist your neck. Everything had locked itself, and now my right arm was also becoming so heavy and so painful because the pain was radiating through it. The left arm, however, was not in pain. So I said, "I can't sit. I don't know what's going on." And so it's funny because they had to do the EKG and everything, the blood pressure test, while I'm standing. And the more they pressed on the back, the more I felt pain. If they pressed on the side, it felt painful. It was such a weird experience. And so finally they were able to help me get on the gurney, and put me in the ambulance, which to me, I was just like, I cannot believe this is happening. But at the same time, one thing I never felt, I never felt frightened about my life. I never felt like I was going to lose my life, but I felt quite, it was quite uh funny to see just how life can change in an instant, in a minute, right? So then we're going to the docs, to the ED, and I can, they're talking to me, I can respond. But the fact that you are lying there on a gurney, in the back of the ambulance, and you're getting there, you can't even figure out where you are at. You get to the ED, and you can't literally get from the gurney to the bed, to the hospital bed, and they had to lift me, to the bed because I just couldn't move. That was pretty dramatic. It was. And the fact that I couldn't, getting there, I couldn't even get up to well, I don't know, it was pretty kind of pretty dramatic. I can tell you that for sure. But after all the assessments, they did the CT scan, and they did all the other assessments, and luckily the heart was fine, the lungs were fine. That's all they really wanted to make sure they rule out, because they want to make sure they rule out anything that is lethal. And so once they came up with the report that those were fine, I was glad, I was happy, but I was still in so much pain. They gave me a narcotic that, was able to reduce the pain a little bit, but it was still painful to the point where getting up by myself was really difficult. But just the fact that the heart was in good shape and the lungs were in good shape, and the other organs was enough for me to feel like, okay, I can battle with this one. I can handle with whatever it is, because I figured it could be something that is just external, or I don't know. I just figured I'm gonna fight this. So my husband came and took, after I was discharged, my husband came and we started the home therapy. He has been very, very, very helpful, because he has gone through something similar. It may not have been to the extent where the body locked itself, but he has experienced back injury at work. And so it was easy for him to use the therapist that his physical therapist and doctor used on him to help me. And so I am so grateful. And I know prayers have really been what has accelerated, what God Himself just, bringing the healing virtue and allowing it to flow through me. I know this week was a very, very important week for us, because we have things planned. And so God Himself breathing His fresh breath and fresh life and restoration on my body, and saying, "You need to get up because I have work for you to do." I am grateful. And I'm grateful to you for all your prayers and your support. If you didn't know this, I just want to say, you know what? This happened, but I'm back on my feet. Now, I may feel a little pain here and there, mild pain, but I tell you what, the fact that I can sit up like this and talk And the fact that I can move around and do some things in the house is enough for me to say, thank you, Lord, and thank you for your prayers. It's never over until God says it's over. And so I am totally grateful. And if by any chance you're going through a trying time, a challenging time, maybe it's physical pain, maybe it's emotional pain, maybe it's just issues of life that have put you in a place where you feel locked. You feel locked. You feel like you can't break camp. You feel like you're in a prison of some kind. I want to speak a word to you, a word of courage and a word of hope and a word of God is able to restore. I want to encourage you that, you know what, just like Paul and Silas were in that prison, and they prayed and they trusted God, and God opened the doors. God opened the doors of those prison gates so that Paul would get out. And so I trust that God is causing a release from your life. Whatever it is that you're experiencing, God is allowing a release and removing anything that is locked in your life, any opportunities that are locked in your life. My body was locked, but God has released. God caused a release, and God is able to release you from everything, any bondage, any captivity, any prison, anything that you may be locked in. It could be ailments and diseases, chronic pain, and stuff that that you may be experiencing. It could be financial hardships. It could be, just the curses that have been spoken over your generation, and you feel like however much you try to get out of them, you just never break camp. Today, I want to declare that there is a release. There is a freedom that God is allowing, this liberation that God is allowing this time as you listen to this word. Receive it and walk freely because God says so. God bless you so much. This is the year of divine alignment. It's causing an alignment. It's causing us to move and in the line that He has created, to move in His will and His power. In the name of Jesus. God bless you so much. Love you guys. Bye-bye.